homeless teenagers on the Iron Range can be found just about anywhere anyone is hanging out. In school, at church, in the park, or at the mall. A few weeks ago, a survey found 40 homeless teenagers in Virginia alone. Homelessness among teenagers is a misconceived topic that goes unrecognized in many communities. Many teens that are homeless come from broken homes of physical, mental, or sexual abuse, as well as drugs or alcohol addictions in the home. Usually the causes of their homelessness are due to choices made by others. On this program, produced by teenagers in the Upward Bound program with Mesabi Range at the MCTV studios in Virginia, you'll hear many startling facts, as well as hear many stories about homeless teens, some told by these young adults themselves.
From Wilder.org on homeless youth, we've found the following information. The primary causes of homelessness among youth are family, conflict, or severe economic hardship. Studies estimate that 20% of youth who arrive at shelters came directly from foster care, and more than 25% had been in foster care in the previous year. These youth age out of foster care system and are discharged with no housing or income support. For youth who are released from juvenile corrections facilities, many become homeless because they lack support systems and opportunities for work and housing. Some homeless youth have run away from homes where they were victims of physical, sexual, or emotional abuse. One study reports that more than 4 in 10 youth report being beaten by a caretaker, and a quarter were either sexually abused or feared being sexually abused. Others are running away from alcohol and drug abuse in the home. More than 40% of homeless youth report that one or both of their parents had at some point received treatment for alcohol, drug, or psychological problems. A number are homeless because of their own addictions to drugs and/or alcohol. One study in the Journal of Substance Abuse Treatment contends that 85% of homeless youth have substance use disorders. A large number of homeless young women either ran away or were kicked out of their home due to pregnancy. A tenth of homeless and runaway girls are reportedly pregnant. Other homeless youth are forced to leave home because of their sexual orientation, that is gay, lesbian, bisexual, or transgender. As many as 25% of LBGT are rejected by their families, and many end up homeless on the streets. There are homeless youth that are employed but still can't afford rent, food, and other basic needs. Neglect and lack of emotional and financial support from their families can also cause youth homelessness. Mentally ill youth may end up homeless because they don't have access to the supportive housing and/or other treatment. History of early childhood trauma, mental, sexual, and physical abuse occurring in mostly broken homes is by far the most common trait found among the teenage homeless. These teens trade home environments of alcohol and drug abuse mixed with crime, poverty, and violence for similar conditions on the streets. The teenage homeless who are forced out of their homes due to reasons such as unruliness, lack of resources, parental or sibling conflicts, self-injurious behavior, or criminal behavior are called throwaways because they were thrown away by their parents.
I was in foster care, and I kind of got in an argument with my foster mom, and so I decided I wasn't gonna live with her anymore, and I spend my nights, well, it depends, you know, like, I always have a friend's house to stay at, but I have to, you know, jump from one house to another, and usually the person who I'm staying with at that moment will feed me. I guess I cope with my situation by well, I always keep in contact with, you know, my support, and I keep going with all my appointments, and I just take one day at a time. Well, you know, even though I am homeless, I do have few possessions, and I do carry, actually, you know, deodorants and everything I'll need with me at all times, you know. And then wherever I'm staying, I just clean up there, and sometimes they let me wash my clothes. And no, I don't have any money. I don't get money. I'm signed up for a few programs, or I have tried to, but they haven't given me anything. So my dad left before I was born, and my mom, she has a boyfriend who, I guess her first priority is her boyfriend. I wish that people would realize that it's not always about drugs or alcohol, and I wish that they wouldn't think of us as dirty, filthy people, because, you know, it's harder than having a house. I mean, worrying about everything. It's just, I really do miss my foster mom. I don't know, because I don't know what other people would think about being homeless, because honestly, everybody's homeless situation is different, and everybody's situation, yeah, it's all different. But I guess, you know, if you are homeless, you know, just take one day at a time, you know. Remember that you have a future, and if something was to happen to you, you would never know what's going to happen to you in your future. You're just going to be gone. I've signed up for the foyer. I have gone to AEOA. I tried living with my mom. I tried staying at a friend's house and kept getting kicked out because they don't like me very much. Okay, to help with my situation, you know, it would mostly just be my mom getting up and saying to her boyfriend, "This is my daughter. This is one of my priorities." You know, I'm sick of feeling like I'm trash.
At the start of Invisible, the Diaries of New York's Homeless Youth, Chris Glorioso tells viewers that New York's young homeless do not live under bridges, they don't sleep on street blankets. That most young homeless aren't on the street, they rather couch surf and rely on others for shelter. And 44% have jobs, just not the kind that can sustain them in New York. Viewers hear Lisette Horn, a poet, talk about being abused at home and how that led to an eating disorder and her becoming a cutter. She was homeless for 2 years. Celeste Samuel says he spent 2 years living on couches of others. They don't look homeless, Adam Bucko says, as cameras capture 2 women with backpacks outside the Port Authority bus terminal. But they have this look. You can see they just go here, but they look overwhelmed. They're trying so hard not to look like they're in a crisis. He warns that if nothing is done about this problem of homeless kids, they'll eventually grow up to be homeless adults. For me to define myself as not being homeless, I had to realize that I was worth something, at least to someone, or at least my story was worth something to someone, Horn says. You can suffer all alone, all you want, and it won't mean anything except to you.
My mom and dad were getting a divorce. My mom had a new boyfriend and she was moving to the cities to live with him. My dad and I lived in an apartment in town, but then he lost his job. We were forced out of our home because we couldn't pay our rent. My dad decided that he was going to live in a storage unit out in the country. He said that there was no room for me, so I stayed with my friends when I could. I've been homeless for 6 months. I worried about where I could sleep and if I could find a place at a friend's house, or if I could stay in my car. During the school day, I would get to eat at school. At night, I would get a meal from friends' parents. While I was staying at my dad's, we could get food from the food shelf, but we had very little ways to cook it. My mom is living in the Twin Cities now, and my dad's still living in the storage unit. He is still looking for work. I wish others knew that we are normal people. I didn't do anything wrong that made me homeless. I'm not a criminal, and lots of people in class had no idea I was homeless. I talked with the AEOA and got help with getting an apartment. They helped me with paying my rent and deposit. They have also connected me with the workforce center, and I am now working and able to pay my own bills and help my dad out with that when I could. People can donate to the food shelf so that people that don't have enough food can get something to eat. People really need to not judge people for poor situations.
The National Coalition for the Homeless defines homeless youth as individuals under age of 18 who lack parental, foster, or institutional care. 1 of every 3 homeless people are under the age of 18. 1.6 to 1.7 million people under the age of 18 will experience homelessness each year. The majority of homeless and runaway youths are between the age of 15 and 17. Approximately half of all runaways were physically abused before fleeing the home. Up to a third of runaways have been forced to perform sexual acts against his or her will. Half of all runaways left home because of disagreements with parents or guardians. A third of all runaways will attempt suicide. Homeless youth are up to 10 times more likely to have or contract HIV than non-homeless adolescents. 1/10 of homeless and runaway females are reported pregnant. This year, 1 in 260 runaways and homeless youths will die from assault, illness, and suicide.
Well, I grew up in foster cares and group homes. What basically started because how that started is, I'll just put it like, my mom's boyfriend liked me more than her, so I ended up being removed from the home, and then I was being abused by my foster parents, so basically I was just thrown out on the streets, probably from 14 and up. I went to about 4 different foster homes. Foster dad was abusive physically and like verbally, mentally. And actually I wasn't in one of them, I wasn't the only one who was removed. Like, they actually lost their foster license. So basically, they don't do illegal emancipation, but I basically was illegally emancipated and just thrown out on the street on my own. I just hopped around from friends to friends if I could. Sometimes I even stayed up all night just walking around all night long until the next day, till things opened up, you know, stores. At first, it wasn't that. Like, I did start getting into alcohol after I was homeless for a while, just because everything was so frustrating and it didn't seem like anybody was trying to help me. So, I mean, and of course the group of friends I had, you know, they weren't very goody goods. So I guess that was an escape of how not to just worry about where I was gonna go, what was I gonna eat. You know, it just kind of gave me that feeling of, oh, whatever, it'll be all good. Well, like, I mean, I guess there's just certain things I was asked to do that I probably normally wouldn't do. But I felt obligated to because, you know, they were giving me a place to sleep. Well, a couple of times with the guy, it was kind of sexual things. And then, like, a girl that I knew that I thought was my best friend, she was actually just using me to make kind of illegal runs with drugs that I didn't really know was kind of, at the time I was kind of oblivious to it, but I caught on afterwards. So, well, for a while, sometimes I went days without eating. If I could, when I was at friends' house, I would try to get something to eat. If I made it or had a way to get to like the Salvation Army or the mission to eat, I would do that. And then I learned that I could go apply for food stamps, and you didn't have to have an address, you just put on there you were homeless. And so I did eventually end up getting an EBT card, but it's, you know, you never really got like healthy food because I only could get food that, you know, I didn't have to cook or something. But then I also used my food stamps for a place to stay too. I would be like, well, if I can stay here, I'll put all this food in your house, you know. So I got used in that way too. Well, one, I drank. I started to actually drink a lot to cope with it, and then, I don't know, several times I would, like, go and try to get help with treatment or something like that just to get up off the street, but they would come up with all kinds of reasons or what I needed to do, why they couldn't help me, and it's like, you know, like, I just get so mad. I'm out on the street right now. I don't have a week, you know what I mean, to do this and wait for that for you to help me, you know, like, what am I supposed to do now, tonight? And so it just get me frustrated. Well, and then, I had got into a little trouble and got put on probation. Well, I found it easier once you were on probation to be able to get into treatment. So that kind of got me off the street for a little bit. But then after treatment, it was kind of like you're right back out on the street. So it was like a no-win-win situation in a sense. My mom, now stays around here. I have a brother in. My other brother is locked up right now, but he gets out in about a month and he'll be residing in. Other than that, that's basically my family. I don't know where my dad is. I know he lives in Greece. Never met him. That is not always our fault who are homeless. We didn't ask for it, didn't choose to be. And it's not always because we're bad kids and we're like doped up on drugs or alcohol all the time and that's the reason for it. Sure, a lot of kids get into it probably after the fact because, I mean, if you went through it, you'd kind of probably understand more why it would lead them into doing that. But otherwise, I mean, we're still normal human beings who just want a normal life like everybody else and want stability and home and structure and be able to live life. Like, I always thought, like, parents were always supposed to be there for you, love you unconditionally, and you could always go to them for whatever. And, you know, and then it hurts because the fact that my mom had my brothers and she'd do anything for them, but every time I would try to go to her and I'm her only daughter, I got turned away. So yeah, like that really messed with my self-esteem a little bit, I'd say. Well, right now I have gotten blessed with an adopted family, I guess you can call it, and they are helping me take the steps I need to get back on my feet. They've given me a ground and stability to stand on to be able to get up on my feet again. But, you know, it's not like they're doing it for me. They're just giving me that stability, that home to just be able to do my own steps and what I need to do to live as an adult in a normal society. Sometimes I get a little overwhelmed and a little afraid like I'm not gonna make it or something, I guess. And that makes me just want to run away, but I know that's just like a lie I'm telling myself. And then another one I do fight still is addiction, so.
The following statistics come from youthmovingforward.org. 47% of the total homeless population in Minnesota are age 21 and younger. 54% of the homeless youth 17 and younger are from Greater Minnesota. 89% of the homeless youth 17 and younger are enrolled in school. 29% slept outside at least one night in October 2006. 66% of homeless youth are Black, American Indian, Asian, Hispanic, or a mixed race compared to 18% of all the Minnesota youth. 49% report a significant mental health problem. 51 have been physically or sexually mistreated. Why are young people homeless in Minnesota? The most common reasons cited by the Minnesota Department of Human Services are a background of poverty, family conflict, child abuse, and mental illness, and/or a chemical dependency, issues of youth and their family members. 63% of them cannot live with their families because of conflict or abuse. 15% cannot live with their families because of lack of adequate housing or space. 7% have been kicked out of their family because of their sexual orientation or gender identity. 15% have a parent or guardian that cannot provide housing for them because of their own homelessness. 71% have been in a county-referred out-of-home placement, foster care, group home, or correction placement. 53% have experienced a foster care placement. On a typical night in Minnesota, there are an estimated 600 youth under age 18 who are homeless on their own.
My mom got a new boyfriend. We didn't get along very well. When she was at work, he would make me cook for him and clean the house after him. I didn't really want to do that. If I didn't do what he asked, he would hit me and call me names. He said that if I ever told anyone, that the next time he would really give me something to complain about. My mom had no idea what was going on. I found out that I was pregnant. I was scared to say anything to my mom, but I knew I had to tell her. When I told her, we got into a huge argument. She'd called me all kinds of names and told me that if I was old enough to get pregnant, then I would be old enough to figure things out on my own. So she kicked me right out then and there. I've been homeless for about 3 months. Not knowing what I was going to do, I didn't know how to take care of a baby, let alone myself at this point. I tried to find a shelter, but there wasn't any rooms available. I stayed in my car until I could get into a place to stay. I worked at a food place, so I was able to get meals when I was working. If I didn't work that day, I would try and get to the Salvation Army to see if they were serving any meals that day. I didn't have a choice. I haven't talked to my mom since she kicked me out. I still work all my hours. I asked my boss if I could get any extra hours. She said that she would see what she could do. I tried to think of my baby. When I could, I would shower at a friend's house. I only had the little bit of money that I made from working. That usually went to food or other things that I needed. My mom is still with her boyfriend, and I have no idea where my dad is. I wish others knew that just because I'm homeless, that I'm not a bad kid. I know that I didn't try to get pregnant, and I didn't try to fight with my mom. This isn't really my fault. I thought that parents were supposed to take care of their kids. I will never let this happen to my baby. I went to the county building and got connected with MFIP, food stamps, and WIC. They also referred me to AUA. They were able to help me find an apartment and pay some of the rent until I could get on my feet and figure things out. I'm finally getting my stuff together and feeling like I can make it in this crazy world. I feel like I have a safe place to raise my baby when she gets here, and I'll be okay. There needs to be more shelters. There is no reason a person should have to sleep in their car.
My perception on teen homelessness was that I didn't think it's as much as a problem as it actually is in our community. There's over 40 homeless teens in Virginia, and that's quite a large figure to me. Yeah.
When I first came to this class, teen homelessness to me was, I recognized it, but I didn't think it was that big of a deal. And with as many as there are in the area, it kind of scares me that more people aren't helping them.
The homeless aren't speaking out to the community saying we need help. That's embarrassing. It might be embarrassing to them, and there might be guilt, a variety of emotions, and I don't believe many are that bold to go to the community and
say help.
Yeah.
I think it's also that they don't know who to talk to. There's not a lot of places that homeless people can go to anymore. Like a lot of organizations, they can help as much as they can, but there's only so much that they can do.
Teen homelessness on the Iron Range is not a problem that is going to go away anytime soon. The need grows faster by the day, with many young people who need help being turned away to fend for themselves until resources open up for them. This is not a teen problem, it's a community problem with much that we have to learn, and we can start by asking questions and finding out how we can help families in crisis.